everybody. Welcome back to Live with Kyrus, our all men's panel edition. I'm so excited to have you guys on tonight. Please like and share this post. Invite somebody to watch it because hopefully we'll be, helping someone tonight with some different things that the guys are going to say on here. I'm super excited to have my friend Gil on here, my brother Tremaine, my brother Aaron, Easy. He's everybody's like favorite uncle / dad, my actual dad, Deacon Byrne, and I'm just happy to have everybody on here tonight. Hopefully, just bringing in some good old men's Q&A panel topics and discussion. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Just good.
Doing great.
Doing good? Okay. So I want to start off with asking one of the questions about some of you have daughters and some of you don't. So I want to know, because Aaron, you have a son. Gil, you don't have kids yet. But I want to know what advice would you give your daughter? And we're going to start with Deacon Brian. Like, what's some general good advice? We're going to go for dating is going to be our first one. And then we're going to hit up some other questions. But Deacon Brian, what's some good dating advice you would give your daughter?
First of all, you have to realize you have to set your goals for what kind of guy you want or don't want. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to know what you will settle for and what you won't settle for. That's the first thing. Second thing, once you decide these and you go out with the person, you need to really be watching them to see if their head is like on a swivel. If every time a girl walks by, their head is on a swivel, that might be a sign he might not be all that into you. You know what I mean? So you got to just watch and pray. And really be patient and really be choices. Sometimes you got to really pick. I know people think sometimes that I'm running out of time, but you really have time to get the right person. Because you get the wrong person, it's hell to pay.
Easy. That was good. What's some good advice that you would give your daughter?
Know your worth first and foremost. Know your worth.
Okay.
There you go.
And secondly, demand respect, because if you don't demand respect, then a man is not going to give it to you. All right, and however things start off, that's how they're going to be. So demand respect from the get-go.
Okay, that's good.
All right, good.
Tremaine, what's some good advice that you would give your daughter?
First of all, it's a pleasure being up here with all of you gentlemen and Dr. Whitehurst. I think what Vernon said, basically, they hit the nail on his head. Only thing I would like to add is for my daughter's college. She have a little boyfriend. I really just want her to know that when you in college, you are a young adult. You got to understand that men is just now developing. They don't know what they want right now. So I don't encourage her to be in a relationship. Say just date and figure out what you want, because you're still trying to find yourself. I think right now, high school, college, I think that's just when you're developing who you are. And I guess my advice would just be, like I tell my daughter, just don't rush into something. You may think you like a guy today, but you may like a different guy tomorrow. And for me, when I was in high school, you was here today, gone tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I was down, because I was just, I guess, testing the waters. So I just wanted to share that, and that's the advice that I give my daughter.
That's good advice, and it's sound advice. And so though it's not something you would think a father should actually say, like date around, it is, it's practical, because you do need to, get to know, of course, who you are, and then you need to get to know the type of guy you like or don't like. We have some questions in the comments, and Crystal Kearney said, would you want your daughter to date the man you were at 25? Gil, I see you smiling. Would you want, when you have a daughter, the man that you are at 25, would you want her to date that guy?
I would probably say yeah. I would say yeah.
Okay. So you're thinking yes. Aaron, what are you thinking about 25?
How old am I now? 28?
I don't know. 29.
28. No, 3 years ago,
That's all I gotta
That's a
say.
good question.
Tremaine, what are you saying? 25 or no?
I mean, I just think is at 25, Jerome Harvey at 25.
Yes,
No,
that man.
no way. No, that's why I'm giving that sound advice. Like, I think when no, not at all. And I'm not even gonna. I'm a new Christian, but before I found Favorite Nation, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you right now. I put the P in pimp. All right. So, okay, not at 25.
But that's good. That's true. So Easy, what are you gonna say?
You got one of them buttons you can push for every other word somebody say.
Oh my
So
God.
we're getting all the no's. Okay, Deacon Brian, you were actually married at 25.
And I would say,
I love you, Indy. Sorry.
I would say yes, and only because back then you had to get yourself together. You had to realize that you really want to stay with this guy while he's going through some stuff, or do you not? So it gives you some stability, some toughness to you. You gotta have some stick to itness. You know what I mean? Because stuff's gonna go awry. Stuff will
Wait
awry.
a minute. So you're saying yes, it's okay. You would tell your daughters to date a guy to take like the guy that you were at 25. You're saying yeah, you would give that advice to your daughters.
I would tell my daughter the kind of guy I was, and this not the kind of guy you wanted to be with right now. He's a good guy. He's a good guy though, but I was a good guy. I just wasn't always dot my I's across my T's, but not in a bad way.
Just in a way.
Your mama has some problems.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Blaming the wives. Here we go. Blaming the wives. So do you think that you're stricter on your daughters because of the type of man that you were?
Yes.
Crystal's coming for the dads tonight. So you're saying, Deacon Brian, yes, you're stricter on your daughters because of the type of guy you were.
Right, because I know some guys out there are just running game and they slick. It looks right, but it's not really right. So you got to really watch and see what's going on before you commit. Because once you commit, and especially when the sex started happening, you know what I mean? It's too late then. I wish I hadn't never done this, and you wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Tremaine, I heard you say something. What was your response?
I'm really not strict at all on any of my children. I think my wife will let you know. My thing is, when I was younger, I didn't like the way my mom structured the household. So basically, everything she told me I couldn't, I did it because I wanted to prove her wrong. So when she was like, go right, and I go left, I want to say I'm going left because you told me that I couldn't do it. So
are you stricter? But she's saying, are you stricter on your daughters when it comes to certain things because of the type of guy that you were?
No, because I feel like they have to. I feel like they're gonna learn. She will learn on her own.
Easy.
Hey, I was an angel, so I mean, I'm more strict on her than I was the boys because I know what them little nasty rascals want. All right, I know how they think. I've been there before. So that's why I'm strict on her, not because of the guy I was an angel. You can ask my wife.
Okay. So I want to ask you. Andy said, guys, do you expect a woman to have more grace for your faults than you would for theirs? Like they should go through whatever with you, but you wouldn't with them. So are you expecting a woman to have more grace for you than you would for them?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, I do.
I think me personally, I would want to have equal You know what I'm saying? I don't expect for them to do more. I want
Mhm.
to, if I'm interested in somebody and I'm having in an actual relationship or want to be with them seriously, I mean, I would do my best by the help of God to not be in a place where I have to get so much grace and she has to stick it out. But you know, of course, we have the flesh and we are human beings, and so we are prone to fall short. So hopefully,
Right.
if God is extending grace to me, hopefully the person that I'm with would extend the same grace as I would with them.
Okay. So, Aaron, what do you answer into that question? Aaron?
Unmute. There you go.
Hey.
Ron said to Indy's question, yes, because men have less faults. Ron, that is not okay.
You know, I agree with Ron. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I just think I think grace should be reciprocated. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to grace, I think neither of us deserved it from God, and that's how I look at it. That's how I'm able to forgive people and move on from lots of different faults and stuff. You know, it's because I didn't deserve grace in the first place, and neither did they. But at the same time, I mean, if somebody, it just depends on what is. It's that's a tough question because what are the faults that you're looking over here? Like, what are the faults that we're giving grace to? You know, is it somebody going out and sleeping around or something like that? And that's a different little story. You know, there's a whole bunch of little webs here that I can still give you grace and I can still forgive you, but I don't necessarily have to be with you. You know, and that's fine too. You know, because sometimes you do gotta move on and forgive, but at the same time, you can still move on while you're forgiving.
Okay. Indy is asking you specifically, Deacon Byrne, what is your response to that question?
I say it should be equal. Yeah, I'm not. And if you're in a serious relationship, I think sometimes when stuff happens, you have to really weigh, especially if there are kids involved, other stuff's going on. Like Aaron said, it's all situational, but I think you should definitely extend grace the way you would want grace because I know I'm not an angel. I know they weren't an angel. When people had paths and stuff flare up in their life, you just don't know because the devil's busy. So you don't know how it's going to happen, but you don't want it to affect their whole family or your whole relationship because of something you could not forgive for. But like Aaron said, if it's something crucial, you got to be a big man. It's some big shoes to put on. I don't know how my feet. I don't know about them shoes. I don't know. Good gracious, that's tough. You better ask somebody else that one. Woo,
Well,
that's
okay,
tough.
so then we have a question back to Gil. Pastor Kyrus said, Gil, what type of girl would you be interested in? Because Gil is the only one single on this panel.
Let's see. In short, I would say definitely someone who has a relationship with the Lord. And when I say relationship with the Lord, I'm not talking about just going to church and doing a devotional and having sprinkled Jesus quotes, but actually have fruit in their life from their relationship with God. So that's first and foremost. Of course, physical attractiveness. Of course, optimistic or not negative, very secure in herself, um, into fitness, wants to have a lot of babies. Um, got smart, intelligent, all the good stuff. Just the typical stuff. But the biggest thing, though, seriously, is I would say for me, especially in this phase of my life, is somebody who is in a place where they are really committed to God more than they would be committed to me.
Okay, that's a good answer. So Tremaine, when you were looking, what was your type? I mean, your wife is on here, but we're gonna go for when you were single, because we know what she is. But what was your type? Like, what were you looking for in a woman?
To be honest with you, I was never looking for it. And I think that's the problem. I think when you go looking and you develop a type, you miss everything and you miss the blessings that's coming towards you. Because yeah, I never went looking, man. You when it's right, you gonna know it's right. You know, so my advice to everybody looking, stop. Just do you, and it's gonna come, and you're gonna know what.
Okay, Ezel, what were you looking for in a woman?
The exact type of woman God had for me. That's the type of woman I was looking for. All right, Aaron, you listen to me closely, boy. You young. The exact type of woman God had for me. And that's exactly what I got.
Ezel. Ezel, what type of woman were you looking for back then before he gave you what God had for you?
Oh, before I got what God had for me, now that's a different story.
Yeah, that's what I need to know. Ezel, hello? I don't. Okay, so we're gonna go to Deacon Burn because I think Ezel's frozen for a second. Deacon Burn, what was your type? What were you looking for?
Fine. They had to be fine. But I wasn't never looking. You know, I was always in the sports and doing stuff. But when a fine one passed me, like your mama when she was at Busch Gardens, I said, whoa. Hold on. We need to talk. You know, so I was never really looking, but if you see something, you know, back then I had to say, hold on, what's going on? You had to at least speak and say, look, God has really blessed you. You're looking lovely.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You had to acknowledge it.
I like that.
You had to acknowledge it. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
my gosh. Okay.
that's what
So
happened.
Tremaine's advice is don't look. Ezel said look for what God has for you. Gil had kind of a list, but not a real detailed specific list, kind of. And then Aaron, what were you originally looking for? Well, your marriage is kind of still new, so maybe you need to pass on this question.
Shoot, I ain't scared. I'll say this though. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is a relationship with God. Even if I would ever date people that didn't have, if I was dating people that didn't have a relationship with God, I just knew it wasn't gonna work out. Right. You know, like I just knew that like this is not who I'm supposed to be with, because you don't have that thing that beyond a shadow of doubt, you got peace beyond all recognition. You got peace that can, you know, calm a storm. You know that there is a bigger purpose for your life. When you in those types of people that don't have a relationship with God and don't, you know, feel that sense of the urge of the call of God on their lives, you know, even if I would date them, I would just be like, it's not gonna really work out. You know what I mean? You could try and, you know, try to make it last and work for a while, but there is just the unequally yoked part of it where, you know, they weren't as spiritual or whatever, and it would just kind of like, oh, this ain't gonna work out for me. You know what I mean? And, you know, even if they were good looking or whatever, it's just the fact that like at the end of the day, I knew. So that was the most important thing to me, is that, hey, you have a relationship with the Lord. And that with my wife now, I'm so thankful that she has a relationship with the Lord. Her family has a relationship with the Lord, and things, you know, thank God, really run smoothly, you know, and it's because of that relationship. Everything is birthed out of that, you know, that like, wow, you know, we are living our lives to the best of our ability according to his word, because, you know, what he's saying in his word is so beneficial to our lives. And so for me to be with somebody that's not in that would probably be detrimental to our marriage, you know, because they ain't trying to really follow these, you know, what God is saying, and they don't believe that it's actually better for them than what the world is saying.
That's good. Okay, so go ahead.
I was definitely not looking for somebody who was listening to the Lord and said, when I was coming up and I was out there looking. That was completely opposite way I was looking. If they started talking about church back then, I said, you got to find the other guy. I wasn't raised up in church like that. You know, but now I've changed around, so I understand what Aaron is saying. But back then,
okay,
no,
so
sir.
And now he's been married for how many years? Because he was with somebody who actually was with the Lord, had a relationship with
That is true. That's what I'm saying. But in the beginning,
That wasn't what you were looking for, but that's what you ultimately found.
Well, that's what you found, and thank God. So, okay, so Lulu has a question, and she says, ideally, how do you want to spend the hours after work each day? And I'm going to ask Easy E this because I know he loves to play golf. But ideally, Ezel, how do you want to spend the hours after work each day?
I feel like this is a setup question.
It
I like
probably is.
my time after
It
work
probably
with my
is.
wife.
Tremaine, it's a setup, isn't it?
With my wife.
It's a setup, Bree.
That's the
Good
correct
answer.
answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
That's the correct answer. I'm gonna be honest. When I get off work, I like to go play
Is Zeke
golf.
there?
Okay, Ezel wants to go play golf when he gets off work. But I don't think there's anything. I think there should be a real fun. There needs to be a balance. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Tremaine, what's your answer? Because your wife asked. So what are you saying?
I mean, I did without the kids, just Netflix and chill. I mean, I think the home, and this matter of fact, you know what? I don't even care. The home is supposed to be a kingdom of peace. You understand what I'm saying? So when I go home, when I leave the house every morning and I go out to bring the bread and butter home for my family, to sit down and enjoy the fruits of my labor, when I come home, I want it to be paradise on earth. I don't want to hear a whole bunch of loud talking. I don't want to hear about a bunch of fussing. I don't want to come home to a disorganized house. I want to come home. I want to be greeted by a hug and a kiss. And I want my wife to say, baby, I miss you today. Here's your shower. Go ahead, do you. And when you come out the shower, we're going to have a couple of hours of QT. We're going to put them babies down, and then we're going to get ready for work the next morning. I mean, is that too much?
It's not too much to ask, but I don't know if it's realistic. If it's realistic. Deacon Brian, what are your ideally? I don't think it's too much to ask, but I guess it's not. I don't know that if that could happen every day. But I mean, it sounds like a really good plan. So ideally, Deacon Brian, what's your after work hours? Hangout.
What happens now, or what would be the right thing I feel should happen?
Ideally, how would you like to spend your after work hours?
Ideally, I would like to come home sometime, not every night, just sometimes to a nice meal, not a whole bunch of questions with problems behind them. Just talk to me first and then slowly introduce me to the problems. But that's not what ideally happens. First, I'm asked, what are we gonna eat before I get home? Because I need to stop and get something. So it messes up stuff when I get home because I already have an attitude. Because stuff don't normally go the way I feel they should go by the time I get home. But if I can have it my way, I come home and sit on the couch, watch TV with her, and chill out. Eat some watermelon. I'm good with that.
Well, your wife just said she fixed the salad, so I guess you'll be having salad for dinner, so you don't have to worry about what to eat. Aaron, what do you ideally want to do when you first get home?
I enjoy hanging out with my wife and my kid, and just spending some quality time together. But I will say too, I have noticed since I have had a child and I go out and work and stuff like that, I have noticed how easy it could be to get into an argument, or because you're not seeing the other person's perspective. You could get home and expect all this stuff to be in the right place or whatever. Oh, well, you were home or whatever, this and that. But right. you weren't home with the child. You weren't home. I wasn't home with the child. I wasn't home having to hold him the whole time, or just doing the motherly duties, or doing just duties that come along with having a child. And I can see how it could easily create frustration in a household that does not have grace attached to it, and someone who is walking in the door without that sense of perspective of, hey, let me treat this person like I don't want to be treated. And also, right. I don't know what this person has gone through the whole day. So who am I to come in and demand something? I try to come into my house as a servant, come in ready and willing to serve, regardless of how long I've worked or whatever. Yes, you feel like you want to sit down or whatever and do this or do that. But you know, at the end of the day, if your house is messy or if your house is, you know, it seems like it's just being lived in, I think it's everybody in the house's duty to serve and not be grumbling and complaining. The Bible tells us about that. And do not grumble and complain, because it leads to so much discord and it takes us off the same page. So I try to walk into the house willing to serve, willing to just spout out good, encouraging words and say things that I'm thankful for. Because you just don't know what that other person has gone through that whole day. You know, she doesn't see what I've gone through while I was working, and vice versa. You know, so I was just thinking that, like, man, you know what? Like, it could be so easy to walk in and feel like I can demand something, and you know, and if the shoe was on the other foot, I'm sure, like, if she was out working or whatever, doing whatever, she could feel the same exact way if the house is not this or that or whatever. But, you know, hey, if you got to clean your house or you got to do some stuff around your house, do it one little bit at a time. You know, how do you eat that little bit? You eat it one bite at a time, not by complaining. You know, not by complaining. So that's.
I mean, that's a good. Okay, I think that's a good perspective. But I think
wait. Ron, I just gotta say, Ron has been saying stuff about my hair this whole time. I'm about to chop you in the throat, Ron, next time I see you, and I'm gonna put you in the throat hole and just keep playing. Keep playing.
Ron is coming for Aaron's hair.
I love you, Ron.
Ron is the best. So Crystal said, what will you do if you find out after all the dialogue you've had with your daughter, 18 years or younger, she decided to lie about her relationship involvement with a man that's older than you? Ezel, what are you going to do if your daughter lies about her relationship with a guy that's older than you?
Put her on punishment and make her mama beat the hell out of him. I'm going to find his ass.
Okay.
Call me up, E.
And I'm going to ask for forgiveness later.
Okay, well, Deacon Burn, what are you going to do if your daughter is in a relationship with a man older than you and has lied about it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to talk to my daughter to find out if he lied to her and misled her thinking he was younger than he really was. And after I find out that he did, then I'm going to go with E. And we're going to find him.
But what if he did lie to her?
If he did not lie to her, I'm going to say, well, how do you know that you're ready to handle someone that's out there in the world, been experienced, and not just treating you like any old young girl who's naive and taking advantage of you that you may lose your virginity to? You know what I mean? So I'm going to have some concerns there. And we got to talk about that thing because she doesn't really, and she's too young to know how guys, how they are. You know what I mean? Sometimes they can, she looks more like prey than futuristic. You know, she's not the one really for the future, most cases.
Okay, so speaking of the future, Pastor Kyrus has a question, and she said, why do men tell women that they're going to marry them if they really aren't? Gil, what is your take on this? Because I know you have tons of friends that are older than you, some younger than you, and you mentor different guys and counsel guys all the time. So have you heard that? And if so, what is the reason that you've seen most guys react or handle things that way?
I think a lot of people are insecure in themselves. They have unaddressed things like lust, brokenness in their lives, and they have an issue with commitment. So if you have a history of, like, say for example, you come from a broken home where your father was in your life, or your mother, you had a broken relationship, or you had an absentee father, whether that be the father was there in the house but really involved with the person. It's just a lot of different factors, but I think a lot of it has to do with, just like I said, unsettledness within yourself, because you're always thinking, and I even know myself, especially when I was younger, it's like always about what if there was something better. And, you know, because you're looking for something to fulfill you, but the only thing that's going to fulfill you is the Lord, of course. So I think a lot of times people feel like they're going to miss out on something, or they don't know. People always, one of the biggest things that people are always looking for is the one. Like, is this the one?
Okay.
And the concept of the one is non-existent because, first off, there's over, I don't know how many millions of women on the planet that you could marry. So the concept of one single person on the planet Earth that is specifically for you doesn't exist. And then we can even take it because they're like, well, God told me this was my husband, or God told me this is my wife. Well, I love to challenge people with this. when God set Adam in the garden, he set Eve before him. God didn't say, "Hey, Adam, you're going to marry this woman." Adam said, "I'm choosing her. This is my wife." And so I think that it's the beautiful thing about free choice and free will. But again, to answer the question, I think that one of the main things is that you have to get a person to be able to come into a decision making where they're stable in their decision making is going to come with God working that brokenness, working the insecurity, working the fear, and all that stuff.
Okay, so there's a whole lot of deep-rooted reasons that they respond that way. Ezel, what do excuse me, Ezel, what do you think? What's the reason that guys kind of tell women that they're going to marry them when they don't really plan to or they aren't?
Just to lead them on to get what they want, because you got to know who you're dealing with. You
Okay.
know, there's type of women that's gonna believe that, and they expect you to lie to them, and they just go with it. And then you got women that's gonna put their foot down and say, "I'm not buying crap. You full of crap." But the ones that don't put their foot down and let you get away with it, you keep doing it because you can get away with it. So that's why we do it. We'll get away with what we can get away with. But like I say, there are some women out there that have a lot of self-respect for themselves, and they don't play that. And in the past, I dealt with some that I lied too. Yeah, I'm gonna marry you, girl.
And I think that it's also there's manipulation in there where there's manipulation.
Yeah,
People, like you said, want to be in control. Control is a big thing for many people. So like my guy Tremaine said, he put the P in pimp. So he was out here, convincing, using all the words, know what to say, how to say it, when to say it, what to do, what not to do. And you can be able to have all that you want, especially when you're using different sources outside of yourself to be able to have that control and have that access. And culture always pushes to be able to move around, not be tied down, being able to have this and that, and being able to have the next best thing. So people are unsettled by culture as well. So.
That's
Okay.
right.
So Deacon Burn, what was your thought? And then Tremaine, I need to ask. I want to know what you got to say about why men lie and say they're going to marry women and they really aren't. Deacon Burn, you go ahead and go.
Well, I think they're really short on the game. You know what I mean? They have to go this far to, like Ezel said, get what they want to get. They already have in their heart most of the time they're not gonna really marry this one. You know what I mean? So they feel they have to go this way. Me personally, I never lied and said nothing like that. I wasn't misleading. I wasn't misleading nobody, thinking I'm no saint and we gonna get married because no. Mm-mm. But guys do it all the time because they feel that's the only way they can get their way with the
Okay.
woman. You know what I mean? So they prey on the woman's emotions, and she wants to tell her friends, "Oh, he said he gonna marry me, so don't fall for that. Let him put a ring on it."
Okay, Tremaine, what's the reason that you think that guys are telling women that they're marrying them? Because there's guys in the comments that are saying they didn't have to say that. So, Tremaine, what's your reason? You've heard guys say that to women, and they don't actually plan on doing it.
I mean, honestly, friends of mine that's lied and that would marry a girl are no longer. I think it's corny. But the reason I think someone would say that love playing this again. And but a woman should know too. Like if the man will marry you, and if you want to marry that man, then I think for all the women listening, let's just be real, okay? Let's not take the husband material because I walked in on a conversation and I was not supposed to hear it. And well, right now he ain't husband material, but give me the kid, girl. And all I did was did a 180 and walk back out. Because my thing is, you can't shape a man and you can't shape a woman into being a wifey material. So honestly, if someone lying about they tell a woman they were going to marry them and they have every intent not to, that's malicious intent. And if they're doing that, that's a boy. That's not a man. I just
yeah.
I can't I can't be around boys. I'm a man.
Can I
Okay.
can I add
Sorry.
something too with that? I think also too is people are comfortable. I mean, sometimes the men can feel like you already given me everything, give me your body, give me your time, giving me everything about you. What is it the purpose of me committing to you? We already committed. And so I think that one of the biggest deceptions is that women feel like they have to prove their value to a man, and so they're constantly trying to convince the man to be able to. They're pursuing after the man when it's supposed to be the other way around. The man's
That's right.
after the woman, and so they find themselves. So a man, we're created to hunt. We want to go find her. We want to go get her. And if it's already thrown in our laps and we don't have to work for it, there's no point. There's no fascination. There's no pursuit. There's no reason. A lot of men feel that way. There's no point of continue to go for after something I already got to work. I don't got to work for it. It's free. It's a buffet.
Why buy the cow? You can get the milk for free.
That's my line.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
Because
So there's a question about how long should a woman wait for a man to change? And Aaron, what would you gauge? Like, even for me and Indy, like giving advice to your sisters, okay? What would you say if we were like, Aaron, this is going crazy, blah, blah, blah. How long should we wait for the guy that we're dating or engaged to or whatever to actually change?
I mean, that's a tough question because there's so many different scenarios. And it depends on what that person is doing that they need to change.
Okay.
I think if in abusive situations, I say, if you're not married to them, and even if you are married to them, get out of there, give them some space. I'm not saying get divorced right away if you're married. I'm just saying give them some space, so you're not getting beat on. But and then in the situations where people are just kind of feeling like they're waiting for someone to change, I mean, that's so tough because who wants to necessarily wait for someone to change?
Right.
I think nobody necessarily just willingly is waiting for someone to change. Like, I consciously am waiting for this person to change. I don't think that's how it really necessarily goes. I think it's the person keeps making mistakes and says something maybe that says that they are going to change, or they are changing the way their habits and whatever it is, and you're believing that, and I think then maybe you have to consider, like, all right, well, how many times do I believe that you are changing and making these actual changes, because there's at a certain point there's consideration. Are you actually being considerate of my feelings? Now I've expressed this to you. I've expressed what you're doing is hurting me. And if you continually do that, you are showing some form of disregard and concern for my feelings and my well-being. You know what I mean? And so I think inside yourself, you have to really just decide, like, hey, when enough is enough, and how, like Itzel actually said as well earlier, know your worth, because at the end of the day, as Gil said, there are so many fish in the sea. I do not necessarily, I think for some people there could be the one, specifically for some, but I think a lot of people, sometimes they're the one chose somebody else. And so now you got to find somebody else who was not originally the one, so I think there's so many fish in the sea. Sometimes you got to say, why miss one of them?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so Deacon Byrne, what's your take? Like, how long do you really wait for a man to change? Like, what kind of advice would you give a woman who's going through a situation and she's like, how long should she be waiting for him to change, married or not married? What would you say?
I say you don't wait, because sometimes men have a tendency to know when a woman is waiting. But the problem is a woman has those motherly tendencies where they think, okay, eventually I'm going to change him to come around to this way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I tell people, don't wait. Do your thing. And if they really love you and care about you, they're going to be concerned about you doing your thing and who you may be getting ready to do your thing with. So they're going to chill out and come around. You know what I mean? But if you just waiting on that guy and you being a doormat, he may never come around. You know what I mean? So you got to put some pressure on him sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta put
Tremaine,
pressure
I
on
see
him.
you giving nods to that. Tremaine, what are your thoughts?
I just agree with everyone. You know, like a big Aaron said, like um, I wouldn't encourage anyone to wait for change. I think in the
Okay.
beginning, the- in the honeymoon stage, everything is great, and then I think you can start developing a pattern and realize, hey man, I don't think I want to move forward with this gentleman or this young lady, so I want to just put them in a friend zone, just go back into.
Okay. So
Hey, I want to add to that too. I think after you've done everything you can to communicate effectively, you know, what your needs are, why things are hurting you, and this and that. I think that's probably the point where you should be just like, look, I've done all I can to communicate this to you. This is actually hurting me, and it's not getting through here. And also, I want to shout out to B. Lou's question earlier. He said, "How do you get a woman? How do you teach a woman to cook?" And you know
I
what?
didn't put that up there.
I mean, it's all these women in the world, and I do not have a sandwich in my hand right now. It's a shame.
Aaron.
Amen.
Aaron, don't get kicked off this live.
You can't, and I need a sandwich.
Don't get kicked off this live, Aaron. So, okay, so Ezel, you missed the question. We were talking about women waiting for a man to change, and I wanted to know what was your take on that, because I know that you've been married for a while, and I'm sure you and Sam have gone through journey after journey of different things where you both have grown. So, what kind of advice would you give a woman about waiting for a man to change? You hear me? Man, I think he's going out again.
Well,
Okay.
I have one thing to say though. I mean,
Okay, go ahead.
I think sometimes a woman, if it's not a drastic change that man needs to make, a woman you can't see potential in someone. And it's not that you want to wait, but you see the potential, so you figure, okay, that's a good person, and they're gonna be a good provider, and they're gonna be his, stable, and they show stability on their job. It depends on, like Aaron said, what the change is needed. I would just kick somebody out because they don't cook if other stuff is going on.
Okay. Okay. Well, you just not
If
gonna
the
get that.
menu does not match up to your taste palette, then we got to kick him out, guys. You'll say, "Where's my sandwich?"
Aaron, don't get kicked off this. Don't get kicked off this live. So Amy asked a question earlier, and she said, "You think that some men choose to date a certain culture because they're not as loud or have different questions?" She said, to be specific, do you feel that some men go for women of different cultures because they don't ask questions and aren't mouthy? Yeah, what do you think? And then Deacon Brian.
Ooh. So I would say that it's I guess that's a really loaded question, because you got to look at how a person was brought up and the environment that they were brought up in. So say, for example, if there was a black man who grew up in a rural area where he was the minority, then majority of his taste is probably going to be likely people that don't look like him. Now, if he's in an area where he's from the city and he got a lot of different people that look like him, his taste is going to be probably geared towards that. But however, I think that, like, again, culture, movies, TV, television, barbershop talk, locker room talk shapes our perspective as men. And I feel like for me personally, I think it's always ironic when a person who, say, for example, I just speak for myself and speak,
That's safe. That's safe to do,
seeing that we have black men on this panel. I think that one of the things is that a lot of times as black men, we have not done a good job of protecting our black women, because we always hold them to the standard of different things that we necessarily wouldn't do to other races. So what we would accept from different races, we wouldn't accept that from black women. But I think that it comes from, again, different cultural implications from society, from all different types of stuff. So I think that it comes from individual maturity, comes from individual people who sometimes can't handle it because they are not mature enough. They don't have a backbone. They're not able to stand up for themselves. They feel like they have to go to somebody who they seem is inferior and to be able to control them and have all that stuff. So, but again, it's all perspective based on so many different factors. But I think if a person is saying that, hey, I'm not going to date a black woman because she's too loud, she's ghetto, I don't like her hair. First off, one, you came from a black woman. So obviously there's something that happened with the mother relationship there that caused some type of bad taste in their mouth or some type of way that
That's good.
so but I think that, like, again, I said, to sum it all up, you can go on and on and on about it, but I think it has to do with the individual person, whether they're not, if they're mature enough, their upbringing, and how they can handle themselves. Because a lot of men are intimidated.
But we have some different men in the comments who are saying they dated and married outside of their race, and their wives are, and they're black men, and their wives are loud and outspoken and
Exactly
different than some other women in their race. So I mean, I think that's good. That's a good question to just kind of gauge. We have another question from Lulu, and she said, "What was the most romantic thing a woman has done for you?" And, or what is the most extraordinary thing a woman has ever done for you? Tremaine, your wife asked, so I want to ask you, what is the most romantic thing a woman has ever done for you?
Wow. Because the question is, what is the most romantic thing a woman done for you? So now I got to think specifically of what's the most romantic thing my wife done. I can't say.
I'm gonna come back to you. Tremaine. I'm gonna come back to you. Aaron, what's your answer?
So the question is, what was the most romantic thing a woman has ever done for you? Yeah. So now I gotta think of the most romantic thing my wife has ever done for me.
Ask Gil the question.
Okay, Gil, what's the
No. And I said, I'm picking where I know I love my boy.
No, this is a good question. This is a good question for the married men. Men.
So I can remember.
Gil, what would you say though?
Tremaine was about to go. I'll talk after him.
Oh, okay. Go ahead,
Okay,
Tremaine.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. I remember my wife wanted to have a baby shower, and she said it's very nice. So I surprised her, and I rented a penthouse, and we was on the 36th floor, and we have different balconies or whatever. It was really nice, and afterwards I went to bed, and I woke up with all it was just so much fruit. It was like eggs. She made it her business to order the whole buffet, coffee in bed, breakfast in bed. Then she kind of like walked me out right there, and she was glowing right there in the store. And she got that smile that light the room up, and she was just smiling. And I started that simple thing there on that balcony on the beach with the breeze in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Eating muffins and drinking coffee, just escaping for the world. It's our last time together before the babies came. I think that was really romantic because the next day the babies came.
I can't hear none they saying.
Oh, okay. So,
hey, let me answer. I'll answer it for real. I think.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
That was a funny question though. But look, honestly, now that I think about it though, there has been so many good, just good moments between me and Kelsey, and good romantic moments between me and Kelsey that y'all ain't getting all the details. But
I don't want to.
But honestly, I'll say this: the most romantic thing that she has ever done and can ever do is really just serve me and respect me, and give, like, not in a chauvinistic way. I'm talking about the type of respect that we talked about that comes from the Bible that God commands women to do, you know, and to just let me be the head of the household, but also be my teammate and partner. And I think that is the most romantic thing ever, because it just, I mean, it's every day, and it makes this house a livable house. It makes this house a peaceful house, and it makes this house have purpose, you know. And so, like, that's honestly that if even if she had some crazy event that we have done, it still would not outshine the fact that we serve and respect each other and love each other fully. And it just like that just makes this house livable. And I couldn't live without that kind of romance. That's the most romantic thing that she could ever do.
Bingo said in the comments, Indy got him a massage for his birthday, but she was so sweet and making sure she picked out this big, hairy white dude as the dude because she knew exactly what I needed.
Kyrus, what's the most romantic thing you've ever done for a guy?
Yeah.
Okay. The most romantic thing I think I've ever done for a guy. Oh gosh, it's a little.
I'm gonna take my earbuds out.
No, you can keep your earbuds in, Daddy. It doesn't involve any type of things. But I think just I think surprising them like for their birthday with just different things that they didn't thought, like not gifts, but just little things that showed like all throughout the day and throughout their birthday, kind of the last couple of days leading up to their birthday. Just different little things and surprises, like with balloons in the house or fixing a certain type of meal, because I can kind of cook, guys. Okay, I'm a pretty good cook, you know, and I've got my friends on here to vouch for that. And just doing some, just making sure that they had certain things that they don't always get, you know. And I think it just depends on the person. Like it really depends on what romance is to a person, because you could buy somebody something and they'd rather have you spend quality time with them. And so this person just actually wanted home cooked meals and just to be present. And so that was good for me. Like I don't mind being present, and I love quality time, so it's easy for me to give, and I enjoy doing it. So, Daddy, you can keep your earphones in because nothing happens. But I need to know. There was another question that I wanted to ask, because this is a big deal. So, what is the difference between a man who loves his mother and a mama's boy, and which one are you? Ezel, what's the difference between a man who loves his mom and a mama's boy?
The difference between a man who loves his mom and a mama's boy, I think a mama's boy is someone who just wants to be under their mom the whole time. And you can love your mom and not be there with her and support her and whatever, but mama's boys, they just want to be under their mamas all the time.
Okay. Tremaine, what's the difference for you? Then we're going to go to Gail, and then Aaron, and Deacon Bray. You're going to be last, because I don't know what your explanation will be.
Really good. But my wife always said I'm a mama's boy, but I have the utmost respect for my mother. My mother a lot where she is now. I mean, amazing. Have an amazing story. I learned a lot from my mom, and I think a mama's boy is Patty Patty. He always go tell mommy, always go cry about mommy and want mommy to fix. That's a mommy's boy. A man that loves his mother is a man that talks to his mother every day. You know, a man that like to spend time with his mom once a month to go out to dinner or something like that. But the difference between the mama's boy is not knowing how to separate a relationship with his significant other without running back to tell mommy everything and putting mommy in the business. So I think that's the difference.
Okay, Rondell said a man that loves his mother respects her opinion but won't take everything she says as gospel. A mama's boy lets her opinion affect every decision he makes. Gil, what's your take on a mama's boy versus a man who loves his mother?
I think it's basically kind of what everybody else said. It's just a man who doesn't have any independence from his mother. Can't make no decision. He got everything like what everybody's been saying. Basically, you can't. There's no independency. But I think that it's good and healthy for a man to have a great relationship with his mother. Because here's the tip, ladies: how he treats his mother is how he's gonna treat you. So if he has a negative relationship or a bad relationship with his mama, he gonna treat you the same way. And typically, how he views his mama is how he gonna view you. So you would probably want a man who got a good relationship with his.
That's good. That's good, Aaron. What's your answer?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything everybody's saying. And Rondell had a really good point as well. There's just such a big difference. I think a mama's boy just doesn't have the healthy boundaries. Honestly, I would say this. Look, growing up, I mean, I'm a mama's boy with healthy boundaries.
I don't think you're a mama's boy.
I hold my mom's hand in public. I'll go when I get to my house. I'm hugging my mom. I'm with my mom, but we have healthy boundaries though. I'm not going back and telling her everything that's happening in our relationship, like me and my wife's relationship. She ain't influenced on his decisions. So I think you have the definition of the mama's boy that we're giving it right now is the negative connotation that comes with it, like that could be, you know, if we're labeling it. And I think that type of mama's boy is not the right type of thing to do. But if you love your mama, I mean, I can hold my mom's hand in public. That's my mom. You know what I mean? I love her to death. But I just think I'll say this. I think the interesting thing that happens, I think when you get married is learning how to integrate your relationship and with your spouse and with your parents, you know, and with your family that knows who you are, you know, and so therefore they have expectations of you because this is how they've seen you your whole life. But now there's your wife that has expectations of you as well, you know, and I think we have to honor what the Bible says, which is, you know, we need to leave our mothers and fathers and go and cleave to our wives. But there has to be these healthy boundaries that, like they were saying earlier, which you're not going and spilling and saying everything. We have to be, as husbands and as wives, we have to protect. I do think it's our duty to protect our significant others, their eyes, how our family views them. You know what I mean? So if you're running and telling everybody, you know, everybody's business, or every time you have an argument, you think your family is going to love that person. Every time you go and run and tell them all the stuff that they've done or whatever to you, because your family loves you too, you know. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is just going out and spouting so much stuff, and then there you go, you got this unhealthy family tiff going on, because it's like, well, I'm married to her, but I told everything that she did to me, so now my family has to have as much grace for her as I do. And the thing is, your family is not spending that's the same amount of time with your significant other as you are. So they don't understand the areas that you have grace for them in. So I do think it's as in any relationship, you have to be wise about the things that you share, because it's not easy for everybody to give grace. You know, and if somebody's messing around and hurts one of my sisters or something like that, I'm not often just right out like, let me just have grace for them. Even though I'm like always like, hey, let me have grace for them. I try to have that perspective, but it's not necessarily easy to just forget the things that my sisters or whatever are telling me about this person, because it's like, I don't see why you're dating him, you know. But but part of it is because I haven't spent as much time with that person as they have. You know, so I think mama's boys need to shut their mouths sometimes, and you need to have a healthy boundary. But you also can be a mama's boy and love your mama to death. But if you have those healthy boundaries, I think there's a difference between.
But you said something good in there too. Like, I think everybody said some really great stuff about being a mama's boy or not, and then, but I do think it does make a difference about the boundaries. And boundaries aren't often for other people. Often boundaries that we set are for ourselves, and the impact that the people will have on us. So I think that's great. Aaron, I mean, Deacon Brown, what's your take on a mama's boy or, you know, not? And are you a mama's boy?
Well, your mama said I'm a mama's boy, so I'm gonna say I'm a mama's boy because I love my mama. But I'm a man's man, and at the end of the day, like I said, I hug my mama and kiss her every time I see her. But at the end of the day, like Aaron said, you got to know what to tell them and what to talk about, because my wife used to always say I'm my mama's boy. But I told her it was always situational. You know what I mean? If I'm on my way home from work and my wife to cook dinner, my mom calls me and says she has a flat tire on the road. I'm going to get my mom off that road before I go home to eat the food that my wife cooked. Because of situations. That don't mean I love my mother more than I love my wife. But at that time, she was more important getting her off the road than it was coming home to eat my food.
Well, I
You
think
know?
she was saying, she gave an example of her cooking and you would stop at your mom's house to eat and then come home and you weren't hungry to eat what she had cooked. So I think that's an example.
At the end of the day,
Aaron, I'm about to mute your mic. I'm muting your mic. I muted Aaron. But I think that's something that, but Daddy, would you agree that could be a situation?
That could cause a problem. I can see how that could cause a problem. But I asked my wife to go to my mama's and learn how to cook some of the food she cooked that I like. You know what I mean? And mama is always willing to help. You know, but she don't want to go do it. I'm gonna do this, you know, or she just say, go to your mama's house. I'm not a mama's boy per se, but I love my mama to death. I love my wife. But at the end of the day, fellas, someone call you a mama's boy and you have a good mother. The Bible says, honor your mother. You know what I mean? I plan to live long, so I'm gonna honor my mom with no disrespect to my wife, because like Aaron said, you gotta clean to your wife. So I'm gonna clean to my wife too, but she gotta be understanding there's not a first or a second, it's situational.
In the comment, she said, that's why I don't cook 36 years later. So okay, but then too, I think Gil had said something about a guy dating you who doesn't treat his mom a certain way and being worried about that. Now, I've never dated guys actually who came from a 2-parent home. I've never dated a guy that's had both of their parents in the household. So their relationship with their mom and their dad was often estranged, and me coming from a 2-parent household, I didn't really have that situation. Now my parents got on my nerves, but I loved them both, and I was blessed to have them both. But looking at them and how they treated their mom, they did actually treat me still better than sometimes they were treating the way they were treating their mom. And so that doesn't mean that long term it would have stayed that way. But I think you have to also get to know the person, because you really could miss out on a good person if you just think that too, because I've dated some guys and they treated me great and they treated their moms absolutely terrible. However, there was history there that made them, look at their mom a certain way or treat their mom a certain way or whatever the case was. But then it was unattractive to me because I'm like, I love my mom and you're talking to her like, it was no way I could really be in that situation and then not try to still encourage them to reconcile or forgive. So that's just me, that was just me being me. But that wasn't a situation. Go ahead, Gil.
So I don't want it to seem like that's necessarily has to be the case.
No, I was just saying it's situational. I
know you want, but I want to just be able to clear what I'm saying was basically I said it's a likely indicator of how. And initially, like you said, it may not necessarily be right then and there, but at some point in time, stuff is going to surface up because you're talking about years and years and years of trauma, drama, and all these different things that are rooted in a person's soul. And if they do not get that addressed by the Lord, that stuff is going to surface. Bottom line, point blank, period. So I think, but of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be the MO for you or, for a person, but it is a factor that should be taken into account for.
Pastor Kyrus said, our love language is important. And we're going to go on a simple yes or no. Our love language is important. Gail, what's your answer?
Yes.
Tremaine?
Yes.
Ezel?
Why we got to
wait.
With my wife? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. What happened, Tremaine?
Why do we have to choose between our mother and our wives? That's not fair. That's not fair.
Okay, first of all, I think with the question though, since we're going back to that, I think Aaron agrees. Aaron, love language is important.
Wait, I like what Tremaine is getting at.
I'm just asking.
I really would like to actually hear Bree's opinion on why we got it. What's your thought on mama's boys in dating?
No. Not necessarily mother's boy. I just want to know, why do wives make us feel like, oh, I'm your wife, you're supposed to leave the nest and it's supposed to be all about me. I come first. But come on, boo-boo, without my earth, there would be know me would be know you.
Well, but I think it's when, but that's the same thing. But there's a need for the leave and cleave, because the truth is if you look at it biblically and you think about what a mother does, nurturing you and helping raise you, lead you, guide you, and she's a teammate and a partner and coach in that aspect. And then when you get a wife, you can't go to another house and another team but still be listening to your old coach. So you have to also think about the nourishment, the friendship, the love, and the other fulfillment that comes from a wife. And you can't really be half and half. You're not going to be allowed to be 50-50. Why? Because the house divided can't stand. And you are part of that house. You are a good representation in the head of that household. So if you're halfway at your mom's and halfway at home, there's some situations that could arise, unfortunately, where like, look, we need you here, but you're constantly over there. Now that does not mean that you can't, still listen to your mom or get good advice or whatever the case is. Like my mom, she doesn't want to be in Aaron's business. Okay. So Kelsey doesn't really have to worry about my mom ever coming over and being like, you need to clean it. You need to do. She doesn't have to worry about my mom doing that because my mom's not like that. There are some moms that you have to protect your wife and your marriage from. How? Because you've now married that person, and if you don't, you're going to be divorced later on and married back at home with your mama. So I don't think it's a decision of choosing, but there needs to be a perspective of, this is my wife, and now the woman that's the head of my life. The woman that's first. When you're not married, your mom is first. But when you get married, your wife then needs to be first and take that place. Not that she could ever take your mom's place, but this is a new woman that's on your team, and she's on your team in a different way, in a different position than your mom is. That doesn't mean you cancel your mom out, because you can't do that. But at the same time, you can't. She's not sleeping with you. She's not feeling you intimately. There's so many different things that we could go into about why you have to decide and choose your wife over your mom in certain situations. That's true. It is important that you marry a woman who doesn't make you choose. Because I think when you get in that situation and you're with someone who's like, well, you need to pick, they also may not value family. They don't know the importance of family, or, really you also being able to be present for your family and being a role model. You may not be able to be everybody's savior and handle everything, but you can lead by example and try to be a good man, or be the man you may not have seen in your household, so it's a twofold thing. You don't want to be a mama's boy, but that doesn't mean you still can't care and love for your mom, but there has to be boundaries. Just like when you're with your friends, you don't keep hanging out with your friends the same capacity that you do when you get married and you're no longer a single man. There's just changes that come with relationships. And if you're dating a good woman, she won't make you choose. But you dating that or marrying that good woman, you also will feel like, dang, I'm happy to choose and to stay home and be home, and thank God my mom raised me to look for a good woman. So it'll be a great exchange if you're married to the right one. And if you're not, it's going to be a lot of friction and a lot of trouble. But it truly depends. But that's something that if I had a son, I'd be like, look, I'm not going to be your wife. So you need to be able to go and look for a good one. But she needs to also respect family and have a value for family as well. And everybody doesn't come from that. And that's something that I struggle with, is dating people who value family the way that I do, because everyone doesn't come from family like I have, so I just think it just depends, but we're not asking you to choose. And I think we're not saying you need to choose, but I think after a while it comes down to the word choosing, and that's what your perspective is then pushed to, but I don't think it's a choice. Go ahead, Tremaine. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Dr. Bree, that's exactly what you said. You said that can't be 50 over here, 50 over there. Said that it got to be more percentage with your wife than with your mother. My point is, for the people that's about to get married, that's frightening to them, because you can't say, hey, now you're married, now you got to act different towards your mom because you got to cherish your wife's feelings. That's not right.
It's not, but you can't be your mom's husband. And so I think there's a lot of situations.
I don't understand that. Of course,
but if you think about it, okay, let's think about how many men up here had a dad in their homes. Like my dad is the baby, right? But he's the youngest, but if there was a problem, he's the first one that everybody's going to call. Why? Because he gets things done and he handles situations. So even though, of course, he knows he's not my grandmother's husband, you're raised up with a certain responsibility of being that backbone in that household. But God has now called you to be a backbone in the head of a whole nother household. And you can't do both well. It's just not possible because you're being split and you're being forced to choose, even though you don't want to. So what I'm saying is, I think if you have healthy boundaries and you still do what you can, you still show up for your mom if you can. But if your wife is saying, hey, I really needed you here at this time and you decided to go X, Y, and Z, could we have done it another way? And that's if you're dating or married to a good woman. And if it hasn't happened 1,000 times. Now, there's some women who just get fed up. So, I mean, that's just me. That's just my perspective. And I think that that's something that's workable and that's something you have to grow through and go through. But go ahead, Aaron.
Hey, I think the answer is really, I think it's in the right situations. I think your wife has grace. I think you want to have someone and husband. You know, I think you want to have someone who understands these, who to their best ability has a servant's attitude and has grace and understanding for the family dynamics. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, that's kind of the key, is someone who is not like, because I think a lot of it is what we're saying is like we as men, I think, put ourselves like in this situation when it comes to taking care of our mothers or our family, our initial family that we came from before we got married. You know, we put ourselves in a position of wanting to serve them and take care of them. You know what I mean? To the best of our ability. And so, but your significant other they don't understand that all the way necessarily. Some of them don't, you know, and I'm thankful I got one that does. Thank you, baby. But you know, but, you know, I'm just saying, but in specific scenarios, there should be grace. That's pretty much the answer. You want somebody who has grace in specific scenarios. I think we're talking about extreme personalities that sometimes are even portrayed on TV and are portrayed in real life sometimes, you know, that they don't have grace for these certain situations. And no, you said you were going to do this with me. And like my dad said, and that's in that extreme scenario where my mom her tire is blown out on the street, and my wife has cooked some dinner that we're supposed to have. We got to go get my mom's tire. We got to go fix her. Leave my mom out. That's an extreme scenario that if you were married to a person who didn't let you go to that, you know, to go to your mom, there's some grace and some working that needs to be done in that person's heart, to have, you know, some compassion for someone who's broken down in the car versus a dinner, you know. So I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about these extreme scenarios that if you're in that situation where they're not letting you go for those, grace and compassion is needed, you know.
But Crystal said some moms can be manipulative towards their son's relationship. Yes. And I actually dated a guy, and that was the case, you know. And he was the youngest. He was at home, and it was almost as a way of, oh, you're stealing my son, but it was also kind of like her, you know, husband in a way, because he was there helping out and doing certain things. So like Aaron said, I think it's grace. And then Tremaine, you make a good point of it becomes choosing after a while, because there's situations where you have to make those decisions. But I think being the men that you are on this panel, I have faith that y'all would have, you know, right choices. But it is tough, and you need to have a woman who wants to go with you to say, hey, well, how can I help your mom when she's broken down on the road? And I think it's just multiple sides to every situation, of course. But Indy is saying daddy's situations aren't always that extreme. They are daily. Oh, okay. Well, but I think y'all made some great points tonight. Did anybody have any closing statements they wanted to say before we headed out on everything, or is everybody good on their points? Everybody good? Well, I thank you guys for coming on here. You really made the panel, you know, wonderful. So let's go ahead and say a prayer. Gil, would you mind saying a prayer before we close?
Sure, of course. Father, thank you so much for everybody who's on this panel. Thank you for Kyrus. Thank you for what you're doing through this platform that you've given her. I thank you, Lord, that it opens up opportunity for people to have dialogue, get questions answered. God, you're not intimidated by our questions. Lord, you are the author of truth. You love for us to be able to have truth and be able to be honest and transparent. So, Lord, I thank you for this platform to be able to have healthy conversation. Lord, I thank you that this will be just the beginning of a new place in our lives where we'll open up and be transparent, but also, most importantly, outside of our own opinions, outside of our own perspectives, we'll truly embrace what you're saying about our lives and what you're wanting us to do. Lord, develop our character. Help us to walk in more humility. Help us to love one another as you love us. I thank you, Lord, for what you're doing. And I thank you, Lord, that this is just a representation of what you're doing right now across the world. Lord, you're raising up men, good men of God who are truly desiring to be able to be models and examples for you. So, Lord, I thank you for this statement that you're putting out, especially amongst African American men, that we are holistic, that we can stand and be true men of God. So, Lord, I thank you for this moment. Thank you for this time. Thank you for all those who represent different races, backgrounds, histories, and all different families and neighborhoods and cities. I thank you, Lord, for every story. For every story is made for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Good job.
Amen.
Good job,
That was a
Gil.
great prayer. That
Yes.
was a great prayer, Gil. Well, I'll see you back here next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We're going to do a all women's panel next week to answer back on some of these questions and some of the statements made on here tonight. So I'm excited to see what the ladies have to say to clap back to some of these questions. So we love you guys, and we'll see you here next Tuesday at 7. See ya.
Simple love. It's the back rubs and kisses in the evening, and the silly things you say just to make me laugh. Look me in the eyes and say you'll never leave me. Give me love, give me a girl. Yeah. It's my t-shirt you wear when you're sleeping. It's the way the moonlight hits your silhouette. Love you till my heart stops beating. Give me love, oh yeah. I need love.